All right, so we are going to talk about Project Magi. Google's making big changes to search. So I pronounce it Magi just because I played a lot of games and usually they're called Magi, but you can call it Magi if you want. But Neil, you go first.
So New York Times released an article on how Google is getting worried. There's some rumors going around about Samsung potentially making Bing its potential default search engine, which would cost Google billions of dollars. I believe the New York Times said it would be around $3 billion. If the similar things also happened with Apple, it would cost them even more money. So Google's getting nervous, of course, because everyone's talking about AI and ChatGPT and how Microsoft's integrating it. And when Google released Bard, it didn't have the best reviews out there, and their stock price went down and they lost billions of dollars in market cap. So Google, in essence, is planning a new type of search engine. But in the short run, they have this Project Magi or Maggie or however you want to end up pronouncing it. And Project Magi has around 160 engineers that are focused on it. And what they're doing is trying to make Google search more conversational. So for example, if Eric has questions on something, it would learn on the fly as well as learn from past experiences and modify the messaging and the results that it's showing Eric. And think of it like a chat GPT type of interface, but also being able to do transactions. So if Eric's looking for new running shoes, over time, it will learn the size of the shoe that Eric wears, if he has narrow feet or wide feet, as well as allow him, and this is the big one, to do a transaction right there on Google without going to a website. So they're planning on releasing some of this stuff hopefully in the next few months. And when you think about this, it's going to have huge implications for both paid ads and SEO.
Yep. So this is not just huge implications on the marketing side, it's huge implications across the board. So Neil and I were on the phone yesterday. We talked about 40 minutes or so, and we were talking about the implications behind how this is going to affect jobs long term. And actually, Jason Calacanis, one of the hosts of the All In podcast, he actually wrote a thread yesterday that did really well, basically saying that people don't realize this, but most jobs are going to be nuked. At least a third of jobs will be nuked, if not more. And the rate of innovation that's happening in AI right now, it went from, I don't know if you saw this, Neil, but the actual rate of investment of VC dollars going into AI in 2022 dropped a lot because we weren't really sure what was happening in the back end. And then this chat GPT thing comes out. Last year, people were talking about stable diffusion, Midjourney, but I really think the inflection point was chat GPT. And now everyone's looking at Midjourney, stable diffusion. They're looking at runway ML, these text to video, text to image editors. And we're seeing a lot faster innovation. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about how ChatGPT is evolving quite a bit, where this whole concept of prompt engineering that was starting to become a thing in the last 1 or 2 months might not even be a thing anymore. And so I think we're just going to see the rate of innovation increase because Google's not going to want to give up their market share. And then you have Satya Nadella from Microsoft, the CEO. He's like, we're so excited to take market share because each percent is $2 billion. I believe that's what it was, right, Neil?
I don't know the exact dollar amount, but it's massive. And a lot of SEOs are worried that, hey, this is going to take away traffic from a website. If you look at what Google's done in the past with like weather, it used to be when you wanted to search what was the weather in Los Angeles, California, or Las Vegas, Nevada, you would go to weather.com or Google will send you to a website. Now they end up showing you the weather, and they made that change a long time ago. And there was many more changes with things like the knowledge graph that ended up changing how SEO was done. And people are like, oh, Google's just taking traffic away. But these things create a better experience and cause more people to use Google as well in the long run. And according to Danny Sullivan, who works at Google, Google has continually driven more traffic to websites each and every single year from an organic perspective. So I would see all these AI changes. I do believe it's going to reduce traffic going to websites, but I also do think it's going to cause more people to use Google, which can help counteract that. And this won't work for every single query out there. In addition to that, this is also going to change paid advertising. And from a paid advertising standpoint, instead of a cost per click model, Just imagine doing a CPA model, which is already similar to how it is right now. You're bidding per click, but you're backing it out to what's your cost per acquisition. And if you're just paying Google for that cost, it doesn't matter if someone goes to your website or not. All you care about is, are you generating the sale and is it profitable? Whether they come to your website or not, as long as you can keep generating more sales, you should be happy because that means more revenue from you. And from an SEO standpoint, it'll change a game from an SEO perspective. Maybe you're not optimizing as much to clicks to your website, but maybe you're optimizing for Google showcasing your product or service when someone's using their prompt to converse with to figure out what product or service to buy.
So, a couple key takeaways here. Then I'm going to pull up the thread and we can work towards wrapping. But the bottom line is search in itself is going to change quite a bit, I believe, in the next 5 years maximum. It's going to be completely reimagined. And so I think you have this honeymoon period, or not even honeymoon period. You have this period of time in the next year or two where you can really crank up what you're doing from what we've all known to be traditional SEO, ramp it up there. You have strong domain authority, ramp up the content, use the AIs to help you create more content that's high quality, and you can reap the rewards a little bit, but that's going to change very quickly. So you have to kind of balance when you're going to come off that ship and jump onto the new ship, the new kind of paradigm when it comes to search, because we believe it's going to shift. That's one piece of it. The second piece has not changed from what we said about AI before. Those of you that have the data moats, those of you that have the data already, the proprietary data, you're going to have an advantage over others. So for example, let's say I took Neil's Uber suggest as an example, or his answer to public. I could then take that data and make really interesting content around that. And then I can sell that data to other people, or I can use that data for other purposes. Now there's a lot more that he can do with that, right? And so if you have that leg up, then, go by all means mine it. And now I want to share the Jason Calacanis post over here. And I'm going to read it to you, that those of you that cannot see this on YouTube. And so JCal says AI is going to nuke the bottom third of performers in jobs done on computers, even creative ones, in the next 24 months. White collar salaries are going to plummet to the average of the global workforce and the speed at which the top performers can write prompts. And so I'm not showing you this to be alarmist. I'm showing you this to say, hey, this is where the world is going and this is what the possibilities look like. And just like with the industrial age, when a lot of people stopped farming and they moved into different non-farming jobs, we gain a lot more productivity. And I think that's what's going to happen here. So he also goes on to say, if you're low to average at your job, you need to get on these tools immediately. Learn how to augment yourself, and invest massively in your ability to add new skills constantly. Companies are going to get dramatically smaller and more profitable, like Facebook, Twitter, and others have demonstrated. And then the top performers are already leveraging these tools to increase the distance between themselves and low performers. It's getting polarizing. 40 and 50-year-olds who have been coveted performers their whole careers who ignore these tools are going to be retired from the workforce. This isn't about phone operators, farmers, or dishwashers. It's about knowledge workers. Your knowledge has been commoditized. Your ability to be nimble and learn new skills is all that matters. So I'll stop it right there. Neil, any thoughts on that before we wrap it?
No, pretty much was spot on with it.
Yeah, here's where I'll leave it. This is I'm digressing a little bit here, but bottom line is search is going to change. Search is going to change. Marketing is going to change. The world is going to change. And so you have to adapt or die. And those of you that don't feel like adapting, well, I think that's probably a very small percentage, because those of you that are listening are trying to learn. All right, so we're going to talk about how AutoGPTs will change business and marketing forever. So in the last episode, listen to how we believe search is going to change quite a bit. We've led into this episode on AutoGPTs. And first, let's define ChatGPT first. So ChatGPT, for those of you that don't know, it's the chat interface where you can ask it questions. You can ask it to repurpose something for you, summarize something for you. You can ask it for tax advice if you wanted to give you tax advice. And the thing from a couple months ago when ChatGPT was released was, the whole idea that in order to get ChatGPT to function well, you have to ask it good questions. And so this whole new role, like humans like to be creative, right? We're like, okay, what's going to happen in the future is we're going to need these prompt engineers where they just continue to ask good questions. That might change a little bit now with AutoGPTs. And what AutoGPTs are, they are the ability for GPTs to talk to each other, to communicate with each other, and basically to auto prompt each other. So once you ask it one question, such as, hey, help me take over the world, or help me make $1 billion business, it'll just keep going down the list. And it might take you from the beginning to the end with much less human assistance required. What are your thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, I think it's amazing from the aspect of it's learning. So when people are prompting and they're asking questions. And when you are, it's learning what are you trying to solve for? What's the end result you're trying to achieve? And it's trying to figure out what you need to know, every little thing in between, so that way it can just help you get to the end result faster. And this is just making things just more efficient. And why wouldn't they do this? Who wants to keep asking more and more prompts? At the end of the day, you're just looking for an answer to your problem, or you're looking to get a specific solution. And if they can help you get there faster, it's a win-win.
Yep. So let's talk about some examples here. So for example, if I am playing, let's say Neil's teaching in India or something, and I want to take his talk and translate it over into Mandarin and put my face on it so I become a superstar in China or something, that's possible. And let's say if Neil's kids, he has two kids, Emma and William. Now, teaching them some folklore about Confucius, for example. He's Chinese, but he can change Confucius into an Indian superstar or something. And so you can do a lot of these things now where you can change the music, you can change video games, you can change everything. And here's another one. I don't know if you heard about this one. You probably did, Neil, but Chaos GPT. So Chaos GPT, it was done as a tongue-in-cheek type of application. And it was a created GPT basically saying, hey, why don't you just go ahead and create something that will eliminate humanity and make sure you delete yourself after, or delete yourself after that's done. And then it starts to create all these prompts. And so there's a really good segment on this with the All In podcast. I believe it's episode 124 or so. And the first 30 minutes, the hosts, who are all investors in their own right, and some of them are operators in their own rights, they're talking about the implications behind this, because now the ability to say, hey, like Neil and I aren't necessarily hackers, but I remember when I was 8 or 9 years old, I used to download these hacking tools where I can go into my friends' computers and open their CD-ROM drives or download files or play around with their mouse. Now, that kind of brings me back to that memory. Like that just clicked for me. It's, oh my God, it's going to be that easy to pull nefarious stuff. And you better believe there are bad actors out there. So I believe business and marketing will change. There's going to be good actors as well. But fundamentally, the cost of innovation and the cost of getting things done now is going to decrease quite a bit.
I'm not too worried about the bad actors. You're going to see a lot of these companies like the OpenAIs of the world set parameters and rules so that way people can't use the technology for abuse. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. You're still going to get some bad actors. But overall, you're going to see a lot of these platforms control some of those things. And you're going to start seeing governments step in and make sure that people aren't abusing and trying to really hurt others. Just like if you hack and you do mischievous things, depending on what you're doing, and I'm not a lawyer, you could potentially go to jail and there could be some crazy ramifications for it. But going back to AutoGPT, it's pretty much learning. At the end of the day, why should you have to be good at prompts and type in tons of things to get the answer that you're looking for when it can just end up giving you the solution? And if you think about marketing, your goal as a marketer is to help people solve their problems as fast as possible. Whatever people have issues with or whatever answers they're looking for, the faster you can get them to the end result, the better off you're going to be.
The final thing I'll leave off with is actually I've listened to a couple of Sam Altman interviews, and he's very much worried about safety, but regulation's coming. And so I was reading this Axios piece yesterday about one of the senators. His name is Sherman, I believe. His last name's Sherman. So details here, he says potential regulations from Congress would be focused on 4 guardrails geared towards ensuring responsible AI, requiring the identification of who trained the algorithm and who its intended audience is, disclosure of its data source, explanation for how it arrives at its responses, transparent and strong ethical boundaries. Schumer's guidelines, I should say, or Schumer's guidelines are focused on transparency and making sure people understand what's behind the AI that's spitting out a paragraph of text, helping sort their social algorithms or scanning their face at the airport. So this stuff is coming. I do believe we're gonna see some crazy stuff happening from bad actors, and I believe though it's a net positive for humanity. That, you know, it's an interesting thing, Neil, as we work towards wrapping up here, is only 38% of Americans think that AI is a net positive, whereas 78% of the Indians and the Chinese people believe it's a net positive. So your mileage may vary. Take it for what it is. But I do believe, Neil and I both believe, I was actually just in a text group right now asking, I was like, hey, who here wants to do a mini, like a micro mastermind that will disband in a few weeks, but just to talk about how we're using AI for our companies and sharing some of the learnings? And a lot of people raise their hands in there. That is what it is. Like, try to learn as much as you can, try to experiment as much as you can so you don't fall behind. All right, so we are going to talk about some of LinkedIn's new features, and we are going to give you some thoughts on it in addition to just trying to get you ahead of the curve. So first things first, I don't know if you know this, Neil, but this is something that was maybe released last week. But let's say I go and visit the Single Grain Company page. So that's the agency I have, and you can actually indicate if you are working somewhere that you're interested in working at Single Grain, and the recruiters from that company can actually see that you're interested and they can reach out to you. So if you have a good amount of interest or volume, or you have a good enough brand, you will have people that are going to be reaching out to you. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, what's really cool about this, it'll help you recruit talent faster and less work. So it's just like right now, the way most people end up recruiting is they either post job postings or they just manually reach out to a lot of different people. But what's cool about LinkedIn's latest feature is you can end up seeing who's interested in your company. And if they're interested in working with you, you can start reaching back out to them, and you should have a much higher close ratio, and your recruiting process should be more efficient, and you should save quite a bit of time.
Yep. Just a couple more things to add here. So collaborative articles. So for example, Neil and I doing this podcast is very much a collaboration. And so in March, they dropped a new feature called collaborative articles, meaning that LinkedIn can basically, their editorial team can collaborate with an AI, and then they'll call it like an AI conversation starter. Or I can collaborate with Neil as an example, and there's AI collaborations, there's people collaboration. So the AI collaboration, that's sooner to happening, and I believe the people collaboration piece will come in as well. They're just trying to catch up ultimately with all the other creator tools out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
With if you think about Instagram right now, this is a basic example. Eric and I can do a reel together, and we can be both collaborators in that, which causes the reels to get more reach. For example, Eric posted a reel, added me as a collaborator, and I believe the reel grew in impressions to like 100 and something thousand, right?
207,000 right now.
207,000. So that was quite a bit. And when it was starting off small in the low thousands. It would have grown naturally either way, but it just grew much faster. With LinkedIn, by them doing this, it'll allow where both Eric and I and whoever else you collaborate with, your profiles, your views, your follower count, your engagement, it should all increase. And this is great for marketers to leverage.
Yeah, I'm just going to rip off a couple other features here, and then we can go on them. So individuals now can message a company page. There are now personalized writing suggestions for your profile or your job descriptions, which I think is par for the course now, if I'm being very direct. And you can add skills to your about section. That doesn't seem that new to me, but the analytics, it seems like it's changing quite a bit as well. So they're adding more in terms of your content performance. You can see your top performing posts. You can see your follower insights, top demographics. So that's going to be helpful. So if you're taking LinkedIn really seriously and you're getting like over 100 million impressions a year, then good, you're going to have better analytics. LinkedIn Live, so that's been a thing for a while. Newsletters has been a thing for a while too, but most people don't use it. And then there's audio events that's similar to drop-in audio, like a Twitter Spaces or like a Clubhouse type of thing. So all in all, they're adding a lot more for creators, and I believe they're going to continue to add more because they want to get more mind share, more general reach from people that are doing B2B stuff.
If you're going to take one thing away from this podcast, make sure if you're on LinkedIn, you're leveraging collabs. Collabs will end up getting you more reach, more views, and more followers. Also on your business profile pages, start responding back to people or replying back to people. The more you engage with people, the better of a relationship you're going to end up building with them, which is going to cause more conversions and sales. Those are the two big takeaways. There's a lot of features that we talked about, like even like the recruiting one. But what you'll find is, even like with recruiting, your best people that you tend to get are the ones that you're doing outbound with. Usually amazing, stellar A players aren't looking for jobs. Enough people hit them up on a regular basis where they don't really have to go browse for jobs.
Yep. My take on this one is, my challenge to you all is, for the next 30 days or so, try to post every single day to LinkedIn and see what that yields you. And see if your reach grows, how much it grows exponentially, and take a picture of it, tag us on social, on either Instagram or on Twitter, tag both of us, and we'll try to reshare it to share your results. We'd be keen to see how this kind of group test or this group experiment goes. So that is it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, let us know what you think, and hit us on a YouTube as well, and we will see you tomorrow.